ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति shantiः. Namaste my dear friends, this is second video on the explanation of method of self-enquiry by Sadhu Om, a direct disciple of Maharshi Ramana. For those who are well established in the unending self-consciousness which pervades and transcends all these three so-called states, waking, dream, and sleep, there is but one state, the whole, the all, and that alone is real. This state, which is devoid even of the feeling I am making effort, is your natural state of being be. This is from Sadhanaya Saram. Just as the moving of clouds creates the illusion that the moon itself is moving in the opposite direction, the coming and going of the vasanas causes the illusion that our natural state of existence, consciousness, is often coming and taking possession of us of its own accord and then going away, leaving us. Just as the man came out in the open space from the dark room by steadfastly holding upon to and moving along the reflected ray, so the enquirer reaches the open space of heart coming out of the prison, the attachment to the body through the nerves, nadis, by assiduously holding on to the feeling I am. Let us now see how this process takes place in the body of an advanced enquirer. Just on waking up from sleep, a consciousness I shoots up like a flash of lightning from the heart to the brain. From the brain, it then spreads throughout the body along the nerves, nadis. This I consciousness is like electrical energy. Its impetus or voltage is the force of attachment. Abhimanvega, with which it identifies a body as I. This consciousness, which spreads with such a tremendous impetus and speed all over the body as I, remains pure, having no adjunct upadhi attached to it till it reaches the brain from the heart. But since its force of attachment, Abhimana Vega, is so great that the time taken by it to shoot from the heart to the brain is extremely short, 1 millionth of a second, so to speak. Ordinary people are unable to cognize it in its pure condition, devoid of any adjunct. This pure condition of the rising consciousness is what was pointed out by Sri Bhagwan when he said, in the space between two states or two thoughts, the pure ego, the pure condition or true nature of the ego is experienced. In Maharishi's Gospel, Book 1, Chapter 5, entitled Self and Ego, for this I consciousness that spreads from the brain at a tremendous speed throughout the body. The nerves, nadis, are the transmission lines like wires for electrical power. How many there are is immaterial here. The mixing of the pure consciousness I am after reaching the brain with an adjunct as I am this, I am so and so, I am the body is what is called bondage, bandhan, or the knot, granthi. This knot has two forms. The knot of bondage to the nerves, nadi bandha granthi, and the knot of attachment, abhimana granthi. This connection, the connection of this power, the I consciousness with the gross nervous system is called the knot of bondage to the nerves, Nadi Bandha Granthi, and its connection, its Dehabhimana with the causal body, whose form is the latent tendencies, is called the knot of attachment, Abhimana Granthi. The knot of bondage to the nerves pertains to the breath, prana, while the knot of attachment pertains to the mind. Mind and breath, prana, which have thought and action as their respective functions, are like two diverging branches of the trunk of a tree, but their root, the activating power, is one. This is verse 12 from Upadesa Undiyar. Since the source of the mind and the prana is one, heart, when the knot of attachment, abhimana granthi, is severed by the annihilation of the mind through self-enquiry, the knot of bondage to the nerves, nadi bandha granthi, is also severed. In Raja Yoga, after removing the knot of bondage to the nerves by the means of breath control, if the mind which is thus controlled is made to enter the heart from the brain, Sahasrara, since it reaches its source, then the knot of attachment is also severed. When the mind, which has been subdued by breath control, is led to the heart through the only path, the path of knowledge, self, its form will die. This is verse number 14, Upadesa Undiyar. In the Tamil original of this verse, the word used by the Bhagwan are Vajhi, which mean both the only path and the path of knowing. That the only path mentioned here is self-inquiry and not any one of the paths of meditation is made clear in Guru Vach Koai verse 392, where Sri Bhagwan emphatically says, when mental quiescence, mano laya, is gained by restraining the breath, one should keenly inquire and know that existence, consciousness, Satya Chitta, which is not the body. However, since the knot of attachment is the basic one, until and unless the destruction of attachment, abhimana, is effected by knowing self, even when the knot of bondage to the nerves is temporarily removed in sleep, swoon, death, or by the use of anesthetics, the knot of attachment remains unaffected in the form of tendencies, vasanas, which constitute the causal body, and hence rebirths are inescapable. This is why Sri Bhagwan insists that one reaching Kashta Nirvikalpa Samadhi through Raj Yoga should not stop there. since it is only manolaya, a temporary absorption of the mind, but that the mind so absorbed should be led to the heart in order to attain Sahaja Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is the destruction of the mind, Manonasha, the destruction of the attachment to the body, Dehabhimana Nasha, in the body of such a self-realized one, Sahaja Jnani, the coursing of the I consciousness along the nerves even after the destruction of the knot of attachment is like the water on a lotus leaf or like a burnt rope, and thus it cannot cause bondage. Therefore, the destruction of the knot of attachment is anyway indispensable for the attainment of the natural state, Sahaja Sthiti, the state of destruction of the tendencies, Vasana Akshaya, Kasta Nirvikalpa Samadhi, a state like sleep in which the body remains inert like a log. The nerves, nadis are gross, but the consciousness power, Chaitanya Shakti, that courses through them is subtle. The connection of the I consciousness with the nerves is similar to that of the electrical power with the wires, that it is so unstable that it can be disconnected or connected in a second. Is it not an experience common to one and all that this connection is daily broken in sleep and affected in the waking state? When this connection is affected, body consciousness rises, and when it is broken, body consciousness is lost. Here it is to be remembered what has already been stated, namely that body consciousness and world consciousness are one and the same. So, like our clothes and ornaments, which are daily removed and put on, this knot is alien to us, a transitory and false entity hanging loosely on us. This is what Sri Bhagwan referred to when he said, we can detach ourselves from what we are not. Disconnecting the knot in such a way that it will never again come into being is called by many names, such as the cutting of the knot, Granthi Bheda, the destruction of the mind, Manonasha, and so on, in such a way that it will never again come into being means this: by attending to it, the ego, through the enquiry, does it in truth exist at present, in order to find out whether it had ever really come into being. There takes place the dawn of knowledge, jnana, the real waking, where it is clearly and firmly known that no such note has ever come into being, that no such ego has ever risen, that that which exists alone ever exists, and that which was existing as I am is ever existing as I am. The attainment of this knowledge, self-knowledge or Atam Jnana, the knowledge that the knot or bondage is at all times non-existent and has never risen, is the permanent disconnecting of the knot. Let us explain this with a small story. Alas, I am imprisoned. I have been caught within this triangular room. How to free myself? Thus was a man complaining and sobbing, standing in a corner where the ends of two walls joined. Groping on the two walls in front of him with his two hands, he was lamenting, no doorway is available, nor even any kind of outlet for me to escape through. How can I get out? Another man, a friend of his, who was standing at a distance in the open, heard the lamenting, turned in the direction and noticed the state of his friend. There were only two walls in that open space. They were closing only two sides, one end of each of them meeting the other. The friend in the open quickly realized that the man who was standing facing only the two walls in front of him had concluded due to the wrong notion that there was a third wall behind him, that he was imprisoned within a three-walled room. So he asked, why are you lamenting, groping on the walls? I am searching for a way through which no escape from the prison of this triangular room, but I don't find any way out, replied the man. The friend, well, why don't you search for a way out on the third wall behind you? The man turning behind and looking, ah, here there is no obstacle. Let me run away through this way. So saying, he started to run away. The friend, what? Why do you run away? Is it necessary for you to do so? If you do not run away, will you remain in prison? The man, oh, yes, yes. I was not at all imprisoned. How could I have been imprisoned when there was no wall at all behind me? It was merely my own delusion that I was imprisoned, was never imprisoned, nor am I now released. So I do not even need to run away from near these walls where I am now. The defect of my not looking behind was the reason for my so-called bondage, and the turning of my attention behind is really the sadhana for my so-called liberation. In reality, I am ever remaining as I am without any imprisonment or release. Thus, knowing the truth, he remained quiet. The two walls in the story signify the second and third persons. The first person is the third wall said to be behind the man. There is no way at all to liberation by means of second and third person attention, only by the first person attention. Who am I? Will the right knowledge be gained that the ego, the first person, is ever existent, and only when the first person is thus annihilated will the truth be realized that bondage and liberation are false. So long as one thinks like a madman, I am bound, one thoughts of bondage and liberation will last. But when looking into oneself, who is this bound one? The eternally free and ever shining self alone will be found to exist. Thus, where the thought of bondage no longer stands, can the thought of liberation still endure? This is verse number 39 of Uladu Narpadu. Just as we have explained the three walls as representing the three places, the first, second, and third persons, we can also explain them as representing the three times, the present, past, and future. even through the attention to the present, avoiding all the thoughts of past and future. In order to know what is the truth of the present, all thoughts will subside and the present itself will vanish. How that which happened one moment before now is considered by us to be past, and that which will happen one moment from now is considered to be future. Therefore, without paying attention to any time, even one moment before or after this, if we try to know what that one moment is that exists now, then even 1 millionth of the so-called present moment will be found to be either past or future. If even such subtlest past and future moments are also not attended to, and if we try to know what is in between these two, the past and future, we will find that nothing can be found as an exact present. Thus, the conception of present time will disappear, being non existent, and the self existence, which transcends time and place alone, will then survive. In the grammar of most languages, including Sanskrit, the first person I, the second person you, and the third person he, she, it, and so on are each denominated as a person, Purusha. But in Tamil grammar, these three are termed respectively as the first place, second place, and third place. Classifying them thus, as place is a very helpful clue for aspirants. How? Is it not the sole aim of sincere aspirants on the path of reality to transcend Maya and to reach Brahma, the supreme thing? How then to cross or transcend Maya? Time and place are the two foremost conceptions projected by Maya. Not even a single thought can be formed which is not bound up with Maya in the form of these two conceptions, time and place. Every thought must involve a past and future time because each thought is formed in a moment of time and each moment of time is merely a change from past to future and must also involve an attention to a second or third person. On the other hand, if one tries to form a thought of either the present time or the first person, that is, if one attends to either of these, all thoughts will cease because the present out of the three times and the first person out of the three places are the root conceptions. And the important characteristics of these two root conceptions is that they will disappear, losing their existence if they are sought for by being attended to. Thus, when this primal time, the present, and primal place, the first person, lose their existence, even their source, Maya, which means that which does not exist, itself vanishes, since it has no true existence of its own. This is the state transcending Maya and hence the ever existing one, whole and unlimited self alone then shines. The past and the future can exist only with reference to the present, which is daily experienced. They too, while occurring, were and will be the present. Therefore, among the three times, the present alone exists. Trying to know the past and future without knowing the truth of the present, that is its non existence, is like trying to count without knowing the value of the unit one. When scrutinized, we, the ever knowing existing thing alone, are, then where is time and where is place? If we are mistaken to be the body, we shall be involved in time and place. But are we the body, since we are the one now, then and ever, that one in space, here, there, and everywhere, the timeless and spaceless self alone are. This is verse number 18 from Ulladu Narpadu. Hence, unending to the first place, the first person among the three places, or attending to the present time among the three times, is the only path to liberation. Even this, the path of Sri Ramana, is not really for the removal of bondage or for the attainment of liberation. The path of Sri Ramana is paved solely for the purpose of our ever abiding in our eternal state of pure bliss, by giving up even the thought of liberation through the dawn of the right knowledge that we have never been in a bondage. Only the first place or the present time is advised to be attended to. If you keenly do so, you will enjoy the bliss of self, having completed all yogas and having achieved the supreme accomplishment. Know and feast on it. Sadhana is Saram. Let us now again take up our original point. When the attention of an aspirant is turned towards second and third persons, the I consciousness spreads from the brain all over the body through the nerves, nadis, in the form of the power of spreading. But when the same attention is focused on the first person, since it is used in an opposite direction, the I consciousness, instead of functioning in the form of the power of spreading, takes the form of the power of self attention, that is, the power of doing is transformed into the power of being. This is what is called the churning of the nadis, nadi mathana. By the churning thus taking place in the nadis, the I consciousness scattered throughout the nadis turns back, withdraws, and collects in the brain, the starting point of its spreading, and from there it reaches, drowns, and is established in the heart, the pure consciousness, the source of its rising. In Raja Yoga, the I consciousness pervading all the nadis is forcibly pushed back to the starting point of its spreading by the power generated through the pressure of breath retention, prana kumbhaka. But this is a violent method. The following is what Sri Bhagwan used to say: forcibly pushing back the I consciousness by breath retention, as is done in Raja Yoga, is a violent method, like chasing a runaway cow, beating it, catching hold of it, dragging it forcibly to the shed, and finally trying it there. On the other hand, bringing back the I consciousness to its source by inquiry is a gentle and peaceful method, like tempting the cow by showing it a handful of green grass, cajoling and fondling it, making it follow us of its own accord to the shade, and finally tying it there. This is a safe and pleasant path to bear the churning of the nadis effected through the method of breath retention. In Raja Yoga, the body must be young and strong. If such a churning is made to happen in a body which is weak or old, since the body does not have the strength to bear it, many troubles may occur, such as nervous disorders, physical diseases, insanity, and so on. But there is no room for any such dangers if the churning is made to take place through enquiry. To say by holding the attention on self, the consciousness, and by practicing abiding in it, he became insane is just like saying by drinking the nectar of immortality he died. Guru Vachkai Koi, verse number 746. In the path of inquiry, withdrawn from the nadis takes place without any strain and peacefully as the incoming of sleep. The rule found is some shastras that the goal should be reached before the age of 30 is therefore applicable only in the path of Raj Yoga and not in inquiry, the path of Sri Ramana. This is illustrated by the story of Chodala in Jnana Vasishta, the channel through which the I consciousness, which has risen from the heart and has spread all over the body, is experienced while it is being withdrawn is called the Susumna Nadi. Not taking into consideration the legs and arms, since they are only subsidiary limbs, the channel through which the I consciousness is experienced in the trunk of the body from the base of the spine Muladhara to the top of the head Sahasrara is along the Susmana. While the I consciousness is withdrawing through the Susmana, an aspirant may have experiences of the places of the six yogic centers, Chakras on the way or even without having them may reach the heart directly. While traveling in a train to Delhi, it is not necessary that a man should see the stations and scenes on the way. Can he not reach Delhi unmindful of them, sleeping happily, however, due to the past devotional tendencies towards the different names and forms of God, which are bound by time and place? Some aspirants may have experiences of the six yogic centers and of divine visions, sounds, and so on therein. But for those who do not have such obstacles in the form of tendencies, the journey will be pleasant and without any distinguishing feature, Vishesha. In the former case, these experiences are due to non-vigilance, pramada in self-attention, for they are nothing but a second person attention making place there. This itself betrays that the attention to self is lost. For those tremendously earnest aspirants who do not at all give room to non vigilance in self attention, these objective experiences will never occur. The following replies of Sri Ramakrishna are worth being noted in this context. When Swami Vivekananda reported to him, all say that they have had visions, but I have not seen any. The Guru said, that is good. On another occasion, when Swami Vivekananda reported that some occult powers, siddhis such as clairvoyance, seemed to have been gained by him in the course of his sadhana, his Guru warned him, stop your sadhana for some time, let them leave you. It is therefore clear from this that such experiences can be had only by those who delay by often stopping on the way on account of their self attention being obstructed by lack of vigilance, pramada. Even though the I consciousness, while being withdrawn, courses only along the Susumna Nadi on account of its extreme brilliance, it illumines the five sense organs, Gyanendriyas, which are near the Susmana, and hence the above mentioned experiences happen. How? When the light of I consciousness stationed in the Susmana illumines the eye, the organ of sight, therefore, there will be visions of gods and many celestial worlds. When it illumines the ear, the organ of hearing, celestial sounds will be heard, such as the playing of divine instruments, Deva Dudumbi, the ringing of divine bells, Omkara, and so on. When it illumines the organ of smell, delight-filled divine fragrances will be smelled. When it illumines the organ of taste, delicious celestial nectar will be tasted. And when it illumines the organ of touch, a feeling of extreme pleasure will permeate the entire body, or a feeling of floating in an ocean of pleasantness will be experienced. There is no wonder that these experiences appear to be clearer and of greater reality than the sense experiences in the ordinary waking state, because the experiences of the present waking world are gained through the gross five senses, which are functioning by the impure eye consciousness scattered all over the body, whereas these experiences of celestial worlds are gained through the subtle five senses, which are functioning by the pure focused eye consciousness. Yet all these are only qualified mental experiences, Visesa Manana Bhuvasa, and not the unqualified self experience, Nirvisesa Ekatma Anubhava. Since the mind is now very subtle and brilliant because it is withdrawn from all the other nadis into the Susumana, and since it is extremely pure because it is free from worldly desires, it is now able to project through the subtle five senses only the past auspicious tendencies, Purva Subha Vasanas, as Des- described above. However, just because of these visions, and like, one should not conclude that the mind has been transformed into self Atma. Even now, there has not been destruction of the mind, Manonasha. Being still alive with auspicious tendencies, it creates and perceives subtler and more lustrous second and third person objects and finds enjoyment in them. So, this is not at all the unqualified experience of true knowledge, Nirvisesa Jnana Anubhava, which is the destruction of the tendencies, Vasana Kshaya. Whatever appears and is experienced is only a second person knowledge, which means that sadhana, the first person attention, is lost at that time. Many are those who take these qualified experiences, Visesa Anubhavas of taste, light, sound, and so on, to be the final attainment of self knowledge, Brahmajnana, and because they have had these experiences, they think that they have attained liberation, and that they become more and more entangled in attention to second and third persons, thus losing their foothold on self attention. Such aspirants are called those fallen from yoga. yoga brashtas. This is similar to a man bound for Delhi getting down from the train at some intermediate station thinking, verily this is Delhi, being deluded by its attractive grandeur. Even siddhis, the superhuman powers that may come during the course of sadhana, are only our illusion, barring our progress to liberation and landing us in some unknown place. What are we to do to escape from falling into such dangers? Even in this difficult situation, the clue given by Bhagwan Sri Ramana alone serve as the proper medicine. How? Whenever one is overtaken by such qualified experiences, the weapon of Ramana Sastram, Ramanastram, to whom are these experiences is to be used. The feeling to me will be the response from this by the inquiry who am I? One can immediately regain the thread of self attention. When self attention is thus regained, those qualified experiences of second and third persons will disappear of their own accord because there is no one to attend to them. Just as a spirit possessing a man jumps and dances more and more so long as others attend to and try to hold the man but leaves him if there is nobody to attend to him. When the mind giving up knowing those qualified external sense objects again turns towards its form of light consciousness, it will sink into its source, the heart, and lose its form forever. Therefore, the enquiry who am I alone is the best sadhana even for aspirants on the path of Raja Yoga, which will guard and guide us to the end and save us. It is the invincible supreme weapon, Brahmastram, which is bestowed only by the grace of Sri Ramana Sadguru. It is the beacon light which safeguards us lest we should stray away from the path to eternal happiness, which is the aim of the whole world. It is the path of Sri Ramana which alone transforms us into self. I am, I am that I am. When the mind, giving up knowing external sense objects, knows its form of light, Veli Vida Angalai Vittu Manam Tan Oli Yuru, or Dele refer to Upadesa Undiyar, verse number 16. During the course of sadhana, an aspirant will now be able, by the strength of practice, to cognize tangibly what is the state of the absorption of the ego and what exactly is self consciousness at which he has been aiming till now. Although his pure self existence, devoid of body, consciousness, or any other adjunct, will often be experienced by him, this is still the state of practice and not the final attainment. Why? Since there are still the two alternating feelings, one of being sometimes extraverted and the other of being sometimes introverted. And since there is the feeling of making effort to become introverted and of losing such effort while becoming extraverted, this state is said to be not the final attainment. What Sri Bhagwan reveals in this connection is if the mind, the attention is thus well fixed in sadhana, attending to self, a power of divine grace will then rise from within of its own accord and subjugating the mind will take it to the heart. What is this power of divine grace? It is nothing but the perfect clarity of our existence, the form of the Supreme Self, Paramatman, ever shining with abundant grace in the heart as I. The nature of a needle lying within a magnetic field is to be attracted and pulled only when its rust has been removed. But we should not conclude from this that the magnetic power comes into existence only after the rust is removed from the needle. Is not the magnetic power always naturally existing in that field? Although the needle was all the while lying in the magnetic field, it is affected by the attraction of the magnet only to the extent that it loses its rust. All that we try to do by way of giving up second and third attention and clinging to self attention is similar to scraping off the rust. So, the result of all our endeavors is to make ourselves it to be become a prey to the attraction of the magnetic field of pure consciousness, the heart, which is ever shining, engulfing all, that is, reducing the whole universe to non existence with spreading rays of self effulgence. Mature aspirants will willingly and without rebelling submit themselves to this magnetic power of the grace of self effulgence. Others, on the other hand, will become extraverted, that is, will turn their attention outwards, fearing the attraction of this power. Therefore, we should first make ourselves fit by the intense love, bhakti to know self, and by the tremendous detachment, vairagya, of having no desire to attend to any second or third person. Then, since our very individuality as an aspirant itself is devoured by that power, even the so called effort of ours becomes nil. Thus, when the I consciousness that was spread all over the body is made to sink into the heart, the real waking, the dawn of knowledge, jnana, take place. This happens in a split second, engulfing all with spreading rays. Virti Kadiral Vayum Vijhugam refer to Sri Arunachala Panch Ratnam verse 1. Death is a matter of a split of second. The leaving off of sleep is a matter of a split second. Likewise, the removal of the delusion I am an individual soul, Jiva, is also a matter of a split second. The dawn of true knowledge is not such that glimpses of it will be gained once and then lost. If an aspirant feels that it appears and disappears, it is only the stage of practice, sadhana. He cannot be said to have attained true knowledge, jnana. The perfect dawn of knowledge is a happening of split second. Its attainment is not a prolonged process. All the age-long practices are meant only by attaining maturity. Let us give an example. It takes a long time to prepare a temple cannon blast, first putting the gunpowder into the barrel, giving the wick, adding some stones, and then ramming it. But when ignited, it explodes as a thunder in a split second. Similarly, after an age-long period of listening and reading, sarvana, reflecting, manana, practicing nidhi dhyasana and weeping put in a prayer because of the inability to put what is heard into practice. When the mind is thus perfectly purified, then and then only does the dawn of self knowledge suddenly break forth in a split second as I am that I am. Since as soon as this dawn breaks, the space of self consciousness is found through the clear knowledge of the reality to be beginningless, natural, and eternal. Even the effort of attending to self ceases then to abide thus, having nothing more to do and nothing further to achieve, is alone the real and supreme state. This is from Sadhanae Saram. That which we are now experiencing as the waking state is not the real waking state. This waking state is also a dream. There is no difference at all between this waking and dream. In both these states, the feeling I am catches hold of a body as I am this, and seeing external objects involves itself in activities. To awaken, as described above from the dream of this waking state, is the dawn of knowledge, our real state or the real waking. In this connection, some raise the following doubt. If it is said that we have awakened from one dream and have come to another dream, the present waking state, why? After we after we awaken from this waking state, will even that not be another dream like this? How are we to determine another awakening is no longer necessary? This is the real waking. Whatever state is may be, which we feel to be waking, so long as there is an experience of the existence of any second or third persons which are other than oneself, it is not at all the real waking state, it is only a dream. Verify our real waking, our real state is that in which our existence alone, not attached to any kind of body, shines unaided and without cognizing anything other than we. The definition of the correct waking is that state in which there is perfect self consciousness and singleness of self existence without the knowledge of the existence of anything apart from self. From this, one can determine the real waking. In this waking that Sri Bhagwan refers to in the following verse. Forgetting self, mistaking the body for self, taking innumerable births, and at last knowing the self, and being self is just like waking from a dream of wandering all over the world. Know thus. This is from Ekatma Panchakam, verse number 1. Just as one place, a big hall is divided into three chambers when two walls are newly erected in it, so our eternal, non-dual, natural and adjunctless existence, consciousness appears to be three states, namely waking, dream and sleep. When the two imaginary walls of waking and dream, which are due to the two body adjuncts, the waking body and the dream body, apparently rise in the midst of it on account of tendencies, vasanas. If these two new imaginary risings, waking and dream, are not there, that which remains will be the one state of self consciousness alone. It is only for the sake of immature aspirants who think the three states to be real that the Shastras have named our natural real state, the jnana waking, as the fourth state, Turiya Avastha. But since the other three states are truly unreal, this state, the fourth, is in fact the only existing state, the first, and so it need not at all be called the fourth Turiya, nor even a state Avastha. It is therefore that which transcends the states avasthita. It is also called that which transcends the fourth, Turyatita. Hence, Turyatita should not be counted as a fifth state. This is clearly said by Sri Bhagwan. It is only for those who experience the waking, dream, and sleep states that the state of wakeful sleep is named Turiya. A state beyond these, since that Turiya alone really exists, and since the apparent three states do not exist, Turiya itself is Turiyatita. Thus, should you bravely understand. This is verse number 32 of Ulladu Narpadu Anubandha verse. It is only for those who are not able to emerge and abide firmly in Turiya, the state of self, which shines piercing through the dark ignorance of sleep, that the difference between the first three dense states and the fourth and fifth states are accepted in Shastras. This is from Guru Vatskaya verse number 567. When through the aforesaid self-attention we are more and more firmly fixed in our existence consciousness, the tendencies, vasanas will be destroyed because there is no one to attend to them. Thus, the waking and dream states, which have been apparently created by these imaginary tendencies, will also be destroyed. Then, the one state which survives should no more be called by the name sleep. When the beginningless impure tendencies which were the cause for waking and dream are destroyed, then sleep, which was considered to be leading to bad results, that is to tamas, and which was said to be a void and ridiculed as nescience, will be found to be Turiya Tita itself. This is verse number 460 of Guru Vatskaya Koai. Since that which has been experienced till now as sleep by ordinary people was liable to be disturbed and removed by waking and dream, it appeared to be trivial and temporary. That is why it was said on pages 41 to 42 of this book that sleep is a defective state, and in the footnote of the same pages that the real nature of sleep would be explained later in the 8th chapter. Therefore, our natural state, the real waking alone, is the supreme reality. Since this real waking is not experienced as a state newly attained for a liberated one, Jivan Mukta, the state of liberation does not become a thought. That is, since bondage is unreal for him, he can have no thought of liberation. Then how can the thought of bondage come to him? The thought of bondage and liberation can occur only to the ignorant one, Agyani, who thinks that he is bound. Therefore, to remain in this state of self, having attained title supreme bliss, the eternal happiness which is as pointed in chapter 1, the sole aim of all living beings, which is devoid of both bondage and liberation, is truly to be in the service of the Lord in the manner enjoined by Bhagwan Ramana. This alone is our duty. This alone is the path of Sri Ramana. To remain in the state of self, having attained the supreme bliss, which is devoid of both bondage and liberation, is truly to be in the service of the Lord. This is verse number 29 of Upadesa Undiyar. So, dear friends, here I conclude this wonderful video. Thank you for watching this video. Namaste.